Welcome to the Unfading Truth Bible Reading Plan. Today we're reading Ephesians chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. Make people ask about your life, is it live or is it Memorex? Well, a short little passage here today, Ephesians chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. I'm going to be reading from the New English Translation today. Therefore, be imitators of God as dearly loved children, and live in love, just as Christ also loved us and gave himself for us, a sacrificial and fragrant offering to God. We're going to take one more look here at article number 35 of the Belgian Confession of Faith. We've been learning about the sacrament of the Lord's Supper. Here's how that article concludes. In short, by the use of this holy sacrament, we are moved to a fervent love of God and our neighbors. Therefore, we reject as desecrations of the sacraments all the muddled ideas and damnable inventions that men have added and mixed in with them. And we say that we should be content with the procedure that Christ and the apostles have taught us, and speak of these things as they have spoken of them. Well, if you're as old as I am, you might remember the old ads with the tagline, is it live or is it Memorex? Back in the day when the only way to record sound was on cassette tapes, Memorex branded itself as being the best at reducing the audio flaws that were common to tapes. I always think of those ads when I read this opening line to Ephesians chapter 5, commanding us to be imitators. Because the Greek word there used is memetes, and so you can see where Memorex got its name. And the point is that our lives must flawlessly reflect God's character, since we are his dearly loved children. This means you must live in love, which is nice sounding, but a somewhat abstract instruction. After all, love is an emotion, isn't it? What does it really look like to live in love? Well, since this is the way we're commanded to live, we need a concrete example of what living in love looks like. Well, thankfully, you don't need to go searching to get such an example. You are to live in love just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us. Christ's love is far more than just a feeling of affection. His love was self-sacrificial, and its sole purpose was to restore us back into a right relationship with his Father. This is what it means for you to live in love. Be willing to sacrifice yourself by putting others first, with your primary goal being to help them understand how it is they too can be restored to a right relationship with God. Let's dig a little bit deeper. Thankfully, we don't need to rely on faded, fuzzy cassette tapes to see Christ's love live in action. Certainly the words recording it come to life by the Holy Spirit each time we read them, and especially when we hear them preached. But we've been given even more than that. Remember how we began this study of sacraments a few weeks ago? Being reminded that God knows our crudeness and weakness. He knows that your memory and even your imagination fade over time, so he ordained sacraments so that all of your senses would be involved in experiencing Christ's love, so that you could imitate it in our lives. This is especially true of the Lord's Supper, and it's why we've been commanded to do this in remembrance on a regular basis until the Lord returns. In short, our confession says, by the use of this holy sacrament, we are moved to a fervent love of God and our neighbors. In other words, as you participate in the supper, you become an imitator of God, fulfilling the very purpose that you were created for. As you pray today, use the AAA prayer pattern. That's where you begin your prayer by acknowledging who God is. Today, let's open our prayer to our Father, who created us as his image bearers in order to imitate him. Then as you pray, go on to align your life with God's will. Do that by praying that as you participate at the Lord's table, you'll be moved to a fervent love of God and our neighbors. Then you can ask God for what it is that you need. Remember, everything else that you hear today is going to fade away, but the word of the Lord is unfading truth.